Hi, welcome to Jane Reads. My name is Jeanette. I want to thank you for joining me today. Today I'm going to share my March reading wrap up. I had 7 books on my TBR to read, plus the one that I was in the middle of when March started. So technically I had hoped to read 8 books in the month. I only read 5. I got stuck on a book that took me forever to read, or what felt like forever to read. I read it in 11 days, but it's still, for me, that felt forever because normally I can get through approximately 2 books a week. But I will talk about that book a little bit more. But first I'm going to start with the one that I finished at the very beginning of March. It was Finding Love at Oregon Coast. This was a 4-book novella collection, and so it had Finding Love in Lincoln City by Heather Woodhaven, Finding Love in Oceanside by Lisa Phillips, Finding Love in Cannon Beach by Krista Correll, and Finding Love in Seaside by Angela Rue-Strong. So this was a 4-book collection, novellas, that it started with a prologue where we kind of met all the characters. It was a bride and 3 bridesmaids were kind of the 4 main characters of the 4 books. The wedding doesn't happen, and then the next stories each pick up what happens to each female character throughout after the fallout. So I am not a huge fan of novellas. However, I really enjoy Angela Rue-Strong's writing. So that's the whole reason I picked up this book to begin with. Then I also decided to read this book in February because it fulfilled one of the prompts on Chantel Read Your Bookshelf Challenge that I'm doing, and which was a book with love in the title. And this was the only book I had already on my TBR, that I owned, that had the word in the title that I hadn't read. So, Finding Love. Obviously these are all going to be romance stories. I really enjoyed the prologue and kind of the introduction to the characters. I was interested to see what was going to happen. And while I liked them, story number 1 was it was second chance, a reuniting of old friends. I really enjoyed that. Book 2, I enjoyed the interactions of the characters, of the male and female. However, I struggled that the relationship moved so quickly. They just meet, and then all of a sudden they're together, and it was just like, what? It felt like everything happened in a 2-week period. They went from just meeting, to dating, to changing their lives for that person, to, it was just like, oh my gosh. And I really struggled with that. And I personally, me and my husband met, started dating, got engaged 2 months later, were married within 5 months. So I don't have a problem with quick relationships. When you know. However, I could not get on board with this relationship. I think if the time period had just gone a little bit slower, or a longer time period, I probably would have been okay with it. But it's a novella. You don't have that long character depth time to get to know the characters as much as you do in a full-length book. That's my personal opinion. Book number 3 was the one Finding Love in Cannon Beach. This was my least favorite of this collection. I just could not understand these characters. I just couldn't connect with either one. That was not for me. Book 4 was the story by Angela Rue-Strong, and this was my favorite of the collection. I enjoyed that Dave was trying to follow God's leading, and when he realizes he messes up, he confesses and asks for forgiveness and tries again. And it just showed that, you know, like, we're all human. We can all mess up at times. But the thing is, you repent and you ask for forgiveness and you try to do better next time. And I love the message. And both characters, I connected with them. I could follow, and I really enjoyed it. So overall, I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars because the other stories just disappointed me a little bit. Then the second book I picked up in the month was the classic Little Women. Now, I picked this one up because when I planned my TBR, I had spun the wheel and I got the oldest book on my TBR. And this is the oldest book. Not only like the oldest in publishing, but the book that's been on my TBR the longest. So it was time to get it off my TBR and read it. I want to enjoy classics. I want to read more classics. But I really, really struggled with this book. I found it moved really slow. I found it boring at times, and I found it hard to read the language, understand what was being said at times. I feel like it's only because I've seen a movie version of Little Women that I really understood, that I was able to follow the book and what was happening. I don't think I would have followed as well if I hadn't seen the movie version. My favorite character out of the 5 people, so it's 4 girls and then Lori, my favorite character was definitely Beth. Now, I'm sure most people know kind of the main story of Little Women, so I'm not going to go into it, but let's just say I was sad with the way the story ended, but I mean, I knew it was coming. As I said, I've seen the movie. This one took me 11 days to read this book. And I mean, this is almost a 600-page book, so it is longer than a lot of the typical books I read. So yes, it's going to take a bit longer than a normal book takes me. But I felt like I was not getting anywhere each time, and each chapter felt long. Like, I read this on my Kindle, and I started a new chapter, and it would say 25 minutes to finish the chapter. And I'm like, okay. Okay. And there was 40-something chapters, maybe 50-some chapters. I can't remember now. But yeah, like, I really struggled with this book. However, I am not one to DNF a book. I've only ever DNF'd one book that I can remember, and once I start something, I want to finish it. And I kept hoping it was going to get better, but I really struggled. That's my personal opinion. What makes a classic a classic? Like, how is a classic determined? Is it something that was written 100-some years ago? Or is it because so many people enjoy it? Which I know, I mean, a lot of people enjoy this book, but it was not for me. So in the end, I gave this book 2 out of 5. I struggled. So then the next book I read was The Witnesses by Robert Whitlow. This is completely different type of story reading than Little Women. This is a Christian fiction legal thriller set in a contemporary day. It focuses on the grandfather and the grandson, Parker, Parker is the lawyer. The grandfather was a retired fisherman, boat captain, who is from Germany. And before that, he was in the war and fought for Germany and then immigrated to the States at the end of the war. So we have flashbacks to the grandfather's time in Germany and Switzerland when he was serving in the war. Then we have flashbacks from his childhood when he was a 10-year-old kid and kind of now. Then we get to know Parker and kind of follow his journey he is now a lawyer, trying to kind of determine his career path. Where is he going to practice? So we see a bit of his cases and what's involved in that, and kind of some of the research digging. But it's not so heavily focused on the law, but it's enough, if that makes any sense. I to know that obviously it's a legal based book, but it was definitely the characters that drew me in. The story is told from both points of view, from both the grandfather and the grandson, and there's a lot of time spent outside the office, outside the courtroom. We spend time with Frank while he's on the boat fishing with one of his friends. Just kind of, he's an 82-year-old, relaxed, spending his retirement. And then we spend time with Parker as he's getting to know this girl, and kind of, could this lead somewhere? So, I mean, it's definitely a romance happens, but it's told different than a lot of romance books. I mean, it's written by a male author, so it's coming from a little bit different perspective than a lot of romance stories that I have read. And I loved the character development. Like, I found the story really, really focused on the characters and their interaction with each other. And I loved following Frank as he has been haunted by events that happened in the war for, most of his life. And I really enjoyed following him, finding faith in God and finding peace over some of these events that have haunted him. There is one event that continues to haunt him. And as he's finding peace over everything, he can't get over this one horrific event that happened, because he feels like he was responsible for this event. And there's also people from his past that are bringing this event to life now, kind of making sure he doesn't forget. They want him to remember, and it could cost him his life. And so we follow that story and what's going to happen. I was sucked into this story. I really wanted to know what was going to happen, and I really liked these two characters and kind of everybody else that was involved. There was one character that I wasn't sure about when he was introduced, because it was like, is he a good guy? Is he not? But in the end, he was a good guy. He was trying his hardest, just didn't know sometimes kind of how his actions impacted others around him. So overall, I really enjoyed this story. I gave it 4 out of 5 because the character development was so well done. And I didn't find myself drawn to one character more than the other. So when point of views kind of switch back between characters, there's times where you're reading one, but you just want to get to the other one. And that wasn't this way with this book for me. So that was that one. Then I started the series Second Chances by Terri Blackstock. And so the first book is Never Again Goodbye. This is listed as a suspense. I did not feel this was a suspense. This felt much more along the romance side. That's really glaring there. So this one is, again, set in present day. It focuses on Wes, who is now a single father. He's just recently lost his wife. He is raising Amy, who is a 7-year-old girl, and who him and his wife adopted. And then the birth mother comes back into the picture, Lainey, and has found out that the adopter mother has passed away and now is being raised by a single father, her daughter. And I could not stand Lainey in the beginning. Couldn't stand her. I was so annoyed by her actions. And I really, really felt for Wes. I am not one to cry while I'm reading a book, but this one had me on the verge of tears at one point. I just, it felt like Wes was losing everything, and Lainey was just making it that much harder. She comes across so selfish, and even though like part of the story is told from her point of view, and so we know why she's doing what she's doing and like what's kind of leading to her actions, but it didn't justify it for me. Like it just didn't help me understand. And I mean, I yeah, I don't know. I struggled. But the one good thing about this story is I loved the faith message of this. I loved how it showed God doing something is able to take our mistakes and turn them around and bring something good out of it, even though we've done something that wasn't in his plan or following his will for our lives to begin with. But then we're redeemed, and he's able to make something good come from that. And I really enjoyed that. There is one part of the story where Lainey changed, and it gave me a different perspective on her. And the moment between Lainey and the daughter Amy, it touched my heart, and I didn't feel like I was annoyed with her anymore. And it was like, okay, I can hope for good things for you because you haven't annoyed me now. Not that I want to wish bad things on people, but I didn't like that she was getting what she wanted through the way she was getting it. It was like she was being rewarded for her bad actions, and that annoyed me. So in the end, I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars. I don't know. I didn't like the way choices were made at the beginning. It just kind of irritated me a bit. Then I picked up book 2, which is When Dreams Cross. So this one focuses on Justin, who is an animator, and Andy, who is building a Bible-themed amusement park. So Andy is looking for an animator to bring characters to her theme park, and comes across Justin's work, decides these are the characters she wants. However, she finds out afterwards that Justin is the animator, and Justin and Andy have a history. Not a good history. They broke up 8 years ago due to misunderstandings. Andy's father wasn't the nicest to him, and everything kind of led to a very bad breakup. But Andy has decided, no, I want these characters, and then when she finds out that he is the creator of them, is she going to change her mind now when she really wants these characters? So it's been 8 years. We can work together and, do this, but it's a business relationship only, and this, how well is that gonna work? I really had hopes for these characters. I liked them, but they were both very stubborn and very proud, and neither one really seemed to kind of compromise and want to kind of correct the mistakes that have happened in the past. Now, I was very excited, and I was not expecting this, that Wes carries over from the first book into this book. Justin was Wes's roommate. Wow, that was hard to say. And now he is working with Andy to build this park. Now, we knew that in the first book, I knew that Wes had put a bid in to work on an amusement park. And then this one started as an amusement park. But I hadn't connected the two until about, I guess I think it's in the first chapter, Wes is revealed. And then it was like, wait, this is the Wes from the first book. Oh, how did I miss that? But I really enjoyed we get to see Wes a little bit more and kind of pick up where his story ended in the first book. So I liked that. And this one felt a little bit more of a suspense than the first book did, because there are accidents happening at the theme park that are like somebody is trying to prevent the park from opening, and what can they figure out and stop this person in time? And, or are they going to win and the park's not going to be able to open? So I enjoyed that aspect of it, trying to figure out who was going behind the events. However, I knew who it was before it was actually revealed. And not because, readers are told, I had figured it out. Because to me, it felt very obvious obviously he's behind it. Really? But, I mean, I don't know, maybe I had also read this. This was a reread for me, so maybe I just remembered and felt like, oh, I'm smart, I figured it out. But maybe I really just remembered. I don't know. It did still, even though it had some of the more suspense in it than the first book did, it still felt much more of a romance book. And, which is, that's okay, but I really prefer the suspense. I didn't feel these two characters work together well. I don't know how a relationship can be built on the way they interacted. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see them, 10 years down the line, and how are things going now? Do they still interact the same as when they first started when they first got together? Maybe, they've changed the way they interact with each other to continue to keep a relationship. I don't know. That would be really interesting. Wonder. Could I write Terri Blackstock and tell her, hey, can you do a pickup and see how they're doing now? I don't think she'll listen to me. So overall, I gave this 3 out of 5 stars, because again, it just wasn't there for me. Now, I am currently reading book number 3 of this series, which is called Broken Trust, and this one has definitely felt more suspense-filled while having that romance. And I hope to finish that, hopefully, maybe tomorrow. Maybe tonight, but probably tomorrow. But that's what I read in the month of March. So as I said, I only got through 5 books, which is very unusual for me. So I'm really hoping April is a better month for me. But until then, what are you reading? What has been your favorite read so far this year? I would love to know, and maybe I can add it to my TBR, because, I'm always looking for books to add, even though I have a few. Thank you for joining me. Have a good day. Bye.